And Mr. Chairman, I'll call the meeting of the October 21st Airport Authority Board to order. First of all, the determination is a quorum. I'd like to approve the authority minutes for August 18, 2020. Do I have an approval to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve August 18.
Seems like a long time ago, doesn't it?
It was.
In a second?
Second.
Okay. Minutes are reviewed and approved. I'd like to take the liberty to move a couple of things around on the agenda. One, I'd like to move the budget discussion after item 7.
Mr. Chairman, can we vote on the motion in a second? Can we
Okay,
vote
I'm sorry.
on it?
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Now I'd like to do some moving around in the agenda and add some items. So I'd like to add, I'd like to move the discussion of the authority's budget for 2020, 2021 under item B from the treasurer's report. Can I do them all at once, Josh? Or do I have to do them separately?
Wait, I'm sorry, you can move items. If we're going to add items, then we need a motion in a second to add the item to anything that's added that's not already on the agenda.
Let's approve the moving of items first. All those in favor of moving the budget item to under item 7, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Then I want to add 2 other items. I want to add under item 14 and other business, a discussion of officer nominations. And I want to add something on left turn movements from the or right turn movements from the airport. A discussion on that. We've had some complaints about that too. Do I have a motion to approve, add those 2 items? Under other business. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor of adding those 2 items, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. I will start back when, Chip, can you give us an update on the Fairhope Airport Authority operations, the airport operations?
The south end taxiway lights are back up and running. We're waiting on parts for the windsock light and the runway 01 PAPI lights.
So all the PAPIs are up and running?
Not for runway 1, but for runway 19.
And we're gonna have to align the PAPI too? Is that another?
Cal knows how to do that.
Okay, so we'll,
He's got a tool, he can do that.
okay.
With Nick's help, all the NOTAMs for posting, and so that's about it. I don't know, I asked Kyle, I didn't see it, I don't know, maybe Nick knows, but it looks like one of the distance remaining signs. I took off out there the other day and I saw it laying flat, so. I think
It doesn't do very good.
I realized it's 3,000 feet remaining, but I was looking straight down at it. So I sent Kyle an email about that too.
When you visited with Kyle, did you have any sense of when the lights would all be up and running?
No, I think he did not give me
Okay.
an update on that.
All right. Donna, you're going to do the item 5. Are you going to do the update on the construction of the T-hangars?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. It hasn't changed, as actually I'm going to defer some of this conversation to Vince. The collection of, well,
We got more money.
we've got deposits. We've got 25 deposits and more. I talked to another guy yesterday, and he said that he wants to put in a deposit himself.
Okay.
What I want to know is, are we prepared to vote tonight to begin the process of either collecting firm quotes and construction thereafter? Where are we on that? That's really not in my purview.
You giving that to me? Well, we didn't get Hank involved in the conversation. We sat down, actually, we had a phone conference between Chip, myself, and Don. We got some actual bids.
Okay.
We took those numbers, plugged them in.
Right.
With some good estimated numbers from Hank on different projects. And he was actually going to present that to us. You in position to do that? He was going to present that to us last month, so he can do it now.
Are we in a position to potentially vote on establishing that project tonight?
I think we are. You know, we have a financial issue with our hurricane
Yeah.
deductible money, but other than that.
And we're not gonna get any state help either.
No,
Yeah, so, I mean, that's,
there we go. That's that.
All right, so,
Let me say,
go ahead.
I think to answer your question, I think we're in a position to agree this is what we want to do.
Yeah.
We might not be sure tonight how we're going to fund it because of the.
Right. Okay, good enough.
All right, so first off, one of the main funding sources was going to be submitting a state application for $250,000 from aldot. We have spoken with them for this year to see if we can get that money. That is off the table. So we can't get $250,000 this year, but can reapply for it for next year. So basically, if you move forward with the hangars, you're basically on your own, 100%, for the access taxiways, the hangar construction and everything. So then the taxiway construction, anything that's deemed FAA eligible is up for reimbursement by the FAA. I have talked to them, and once that construction's complete, you can submit for reimbursement using your entitlement funds only. So kind of to make a step forward, because this kind of plays into the same discussion of the hangars, is your pre-app for this year, you're going to seek reimbursement that needs to be submitted for land acquisition. You know what I'm saying? To use your entitlements this year towards land acquisition, because you'll not be finished with construction by the time the grant comes in for 2021. But then in 2022, you can file for reimbursement for all the access taxiways, pavement and everything, but anything beside the hangar, and I think it's 20 or 22 feet outside the hangar.
Well, you lost me on the land acquisition. We already own the land.
No, we're talking about land acquisition of the property that you have a bond on, or you got a loan with, or whatever it is.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know the city's been trying to reimburse themselves for that major purchase. And I don't think you guys are in a position to do the runway right now, which the airport is not, or the FAA is not in a position to do the runway right now, because you're talking about plus $3 million. So, you know, the decision was on the capital improvement plan to try to use your entitlements to take reimbursement. And you can even forego that and let your reimbursements roll over into 2021, and that money's not gone. But you can either take 150 now, apply it to the land acquisition that you have, but you can't use it toward the hangar construction right now, because it's kind of drug along and got too far out of whack. So with that being said, the estimates that we used were generated from actual construction that took place between Foley and in Bay Minette. Used earthwork numbers and pavement numbers and everything else, and then quotes that Vince had got from hangar suppliers. And the path that was decided to go was to build the taxiways, all the access corridors and everything to the hangars in accordance with FAA standards. Keep it that way. It means it has to go through all the material tests and all the engineering, all the bid processes, everything the FAA requires, so that you can get reimbursement for that. And then basically let the airport authority purchase the hangar, and then have somebody install it or stand it up, if you
and
will.
Volker would be the contract manager?
Yes, yes. For all the site work. For all the site work. So right now, Volker has no oversight over the hangar construction itself. Okay? Now, the only catch to that is I also talked to Frank Farmer with aldot, and to seek the $250,000 for the hangar construction, it has to fall under that inspection too. But that can always be worked out later, if you know what I'm saying. But the total construction cost for two 10-unit T hangars, and these are the 265 by 60, so these were the size that we talked about, is $1.5 million for both of those. That was site work, pavement, hangar construction, and everything. And then that also includes, I don't think that has, yeah, that does not have any engineering cost in it. So with the engineering in it is $1.67 million.
1.6?
$1,671,847 is our estimate. And then I guess if you want to know what's FAA eligible, we had that broke out. $626,644 on our estimate is what you would be.
But that would always be entitlement money, that would never be discretionary.
Yes, it would always be entitlement.
So we
money.
would be old and gray by the time we got all that money.
Not necessarily, because sometimes your entitlements, well, yeah, to pay that back, yes, it would take 4 years to get that money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the thing is that once you commit to providing infrastructure on the airport and you lock your entitlements in to reimbursement for that infrastructure you built, then that kind of ups your chances of getting discretionary money. The other thing that ups your chances on discretionary funding is the runway strengthening and rehabilitation. So runways are always number one. And if you've already got your entitlements locked in to reimbursement for infrastructure that you funded yourself, you're going to be at the top of the food chain for getting that discretionary money.
But we still do have the 5% match on the discretionary funding though, right?
You will, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that changes sometimes, like this past year with the COVID stuff and everything, they took away the match and FAA did everything 100%, but normally it's 90% federal, 5% state, and 5% municipality.
Some of that thinking was on this $1,671,000. At that point, we were thinking we were going to have $250,000 that we don't have. And then we were thinking we had $100,000 in the bank, which we do, that was set aside for future FPO. So $350,000 we had up front. Since then, a couple things have changed. We're not getting $250,000, and we have a $205,000 hurricane deductible we got talked about. So, but the numbers are not bad for what we're trying to get. In my opinion, it's, and Don, you can speak to it too, and Chip, I think this is a higher price than if we went out and did it on our own. However, the reimbursable in the long run is a better benefit for us. We'd be able to get that money back.
Well, I agree with you, Vince, because, well, even if we did do it on our own with no reimbursables anticipated, the years are going to march on. This is a long-term project. This is a several decades project, so I think we ought to plug the FAA reimbursables into our equation.
You on board with that recommendation?
So we voted already to move forward with this. I guess the new number, we're okay with the new number.
Now we need to talk about financing.
Financing.
$1,671,000.
Yeah.
That's our next step.
So, I guess so everybody's on the same page. What we talked about is asking the city council and the city of Fairhope to guarantee a bank loan for us that we would show that we could actually handle, that the $1,671,000 would actually cash flow, and we'd be able to service the debt from that and from the reimbursement, from the discretionary reimbursement.
I think our real question is, what money do we have available for a down payment on a conventional loan that we could go to the city and say, we're putting this much up front and
Yeah, I wrestled with that a little bit, but done the ground count, the utility service, all the stuff that we've done over 3 years or 5 years to make that a site that you can put hangars in. Wouldn't the bank give us some credit for?
I don't think the bank's going to sue the FAA and the city to get it back, so probably not.
We don't know. We don't know about
Sounds
banks.
good.
All right, so, and I wish our councilman was here.
If we, and we got to be careful that we make sure that it's perfectly legal, obviously, but we can get the budget firmed up on the pricing that I was getting and get several other prices, and then put that in our bid, that here is your metal building price, Mr. Contractor. You put that in your bid, that's the number we got. We'll save some money by doing it.
Okay.
Not much, but money.
Yeah,
money.
some. And we've done a lot of work, and we can manage the construction of the building.
Well,
Actually.
to get reimbursed,
To
it's
get-
going to have to be managed.
Well, to have a chance.
Only for the 250.
For the
only for the
250, correct.
I think that 250 boat is sailed. I think the 250, they won't give us money after the fact?
Yes, they will.
Okay. I
They
thought it
won't
was
give
just-
you money before the fact.
Okay.
Well, excuse me, you are right. Anything that's already built,
Yeah.
they won't come back and reimburse you for with a state grant. In other words, you gotta get the money and then go build.
Yeah. I think if we're gonna do it this year, that vote was already set.
And what we've got on your capital improvement plan is
It's on the agenda.
250,000 for the terminal building.
Right.
Is to go that way this year, submit it that way.
So what's the board's pleasure? What do y'all want to do? You want to approve the revised number, and then maybe ask some members of the board to talk to some of the city council members and see if they're willing to help us, or how do y'all want to proceed?
I'd like to, move forward with this revised number, and then whatever direction we need to go, we need the city involved, but we need to see what funds we have to put in first, and what's financing we can secure, and then ask the city to back us up.
Yeah.
That's the way out.
Yeah, we got to redo that break-even analysis, right? I mean, that's a much bigger number.
We've got a tentative agreement. I mean, we've got some interest in doing it. It's not like we're, somebody went, all right, so do we have a motion to approach it that way?
I'll make a motion that we go with the revised price of $1,671,000 plus or minus,
Okay.
and that we, through this meeting and subsequent meetings, figure out what cash we have available to put towards a down payment on this, and see what financing we can secure, and ask the city to back us up on that financing.
Okay, do we have a second of that motion?
Yeah, I'd like to second that.
Okay, all in favor of that motion, I'll help you with it, okay? All those in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, we'll move forward. The next one is a kind of a housekeeping thing. Every 2 years, DBT Transportation, who maintains and actually services our AWAS, asks us for a letter of support saying that they are indeed the person that actually does our AWAS maintenance and repairs, if you will. They're pretty responsive. They're out of Colorado. They have a technician in Atlanta that services us. So what I'd like is an approval to continue to have DBT Transportation as our contractor to perform maintenance on the AWAS.
I'll make a motion that we approve DBT Transportation as our contractor for maintenance on the AWAS.
Okay, do I have a second?
Sir.
All right, all those in
I
favor?
have one question.
Yes, sir.
Is this the only guy that can service it? I mean, if he's sick or he's in...
I don't know. I mean, he's the guy that the FAA noted. They asked me to send this letter to the FAA or to, and that's the guy they put in the letter. I do not know that question. I mean, when we had this hurricane, they were responsive and got here and checked it out pretty quickly. They have other support, but I think the FAA asked for a single point of contact for them, so that's what we are.
Well, sure, there's not a 100% running yet. Ours is, so, yeah. Exactly right.
Maybe, all right, so we have a motion and a second. Everybody signify by using DBT Transportation is our contractor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next is that there's a spreadsheet in there that's basically summarizes the repairs and our reimbursements for Hurricane Sally damage at the airport. And also I've got, I think I've passed out, I didn't make copies for everybody, but I did pass out a copy of the proposals from the individual contractors so you can see what's covered. So, where we are in the process is we solicited proposals. We solicited 2 or 3 proposals from 2 or 3 different contractors, and really the proposals have been slow to come in. We are working with an adjuster, a guy named Feeney, CC, out of Boston. He's been down twice. And basically he's approved the fuel canopy repairs, the public safety canopy repairs, pretty much. But we're still negotiating with the North Hangar repairs. And he, as of yesterday afternoon, he thinks they need to send an engineering team down here to reevaluate that number. So what I'd like to have come, I'd like for y'all to agree that these are reasonable expenses, and to agree that we can start getting some of the work done, so especially some of the work that doesn't have deductibles, that we're just gonna have to do, like putting the hangar doors back open, you know, fixing the skylights, you know, getting the public safety hangar done, that's got a big deductible, and getting those things done. And then we'll, when I get a firm number on the north hangar, we'll, you know, I mean, the north hangar salvage is usable now, they just don't have a permanent roof. And that's the question, is how much of the hangar roof do they have to replace? And he's going to actually send somebody down here to actually get on the roof and actually take pictures and come up with a better number. So I'm looking for some guidance or some help, or.
You're saying the only two he's approved is the canopy at the fuel facility
Yeah.
and the public safety hangar?
He's a
Fully
few,
approved?
we're within $5,000 of the public safety hangar, and we put a new, and in that estimate is a electric door vents. So we can always bag an electric door. I mean, it's a $20,000 door, $27,000 door. So he's approved that, he's close enough that I feel pretty comfortable he'll approve that. He's approved the fuel facility, and he's approved the, everything else he doesn't have to approve because it's below the deductible. Like to put the hangar doors back up on those 5 hangars, I mean, we're gonna have to pay for that. That's gonna be $11,000. To redo that, to put carpet or flooring back in the FBO and the floor tiles, that's gonna be $3,000 or $4,000. That's gonna be below our deductible. We're gonna have to pay for that.
So all of these estimates are either equal to or greater than our 5% deductible?
Yes, sir. The one column is the 5% deductible, and then everything above that is, that on that far, is the actual, how much we're gonna have to pay.
So are there additional expenses to be added to that 209 that don't meet the deductible total?
No, I think that captures everything. I mean, this FARC authority's total cash out, that 209 is a good number, you know, and yeah, is a good number. For example, on the south hangar, we had 8 skylights out, and it cost $2,700 to do it. We're not going to get any deductible on that. We're just going to have to pay that. The T hangars had 10 doors or 5 doors that were. You won't have to get those rehung. It's going to be $11,000 to do it. You know, there's no deductible on that. We just have to do it. Amy?
Yep.
The 3 you have highlighted in bold numbers are out of pocket.
Out of pocket, that's right. I knew I voted them.
It's all out of pocket.
Oh, it's all out of pocket.
Out of pocket with no money back.
Yeah.
Do we need a canopy over the fuel farm?
Do we need a new fuel farm? I mean, I mean, there was a discussion the other day, is do we want to go back and, you know, maintain 15-year-old tanks, or do we want to, I don't know, no, I don't know, Vince, I don't know.
I think it's single walls, I think that's it.
Oh, there's a single wall down.
Do we want to take the $80,000 and put it to a double wall tank and get a longer life?
Whose fuel tanks are?
Who's what?
Who owns those?
I don't know, Josh, who owns those fuel tanks?
That's the real question. The way that the original Teledyne lease reads from back in 1995 with the city of Fairhope, and Joe, this is a question I didn't know the answer to, is when those fuel tanks were constructed, but
I
you
can
said they're
get
about.
you that. Mr. Hoffman built them, so.
And okay, but they were built.
After 1995.
After 1995, they were an improvement that was made by Continental at the airport facility. The way that the 1995 lease reads is that Continental has the ability, or Teledyne then, had the ability to make improvements on the leased premises And the Teledyne would own those improvements, subject to the authority, or again, the city at that time, subject to the city's ability to buy the improvements for their appraised value when the lease terminates. So that was not changed by our 2014 lease extension. There were, I think, five lease amendments after 1995, but before 2010, that I don't have on the authority's records, probably because they were city records at that time. The authority wasn't formed until 2007. If I had to guess, I would say that those amendments merely extended the lease without any substantive change. But before having any kind of a final opinion, I'd want to see what those lease amendments say. But if you go back to the Teledyne lease, again, Teledyne had the ability to make improvements. Teledyne would own those improvements, subject to the city's ability to buy them out at the expiration of the lease for whatever the appraised value of the improvements were at that time. So that's how they structured it.
Or they take them with them if they left.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
In a big truck. Now,
That's right.
I mean, you can
That's
keep
no,
the
that's
farms around, so-
that's right. But that's exactly the way that that lease reads. Either they're purchased or they're taken by Teledyne.
To complicate it a little bit more, when we were negotiating the lease in 2004, the revision in 2014, there's an MOU that basically outlined the things that we wanted and the things that Continental wanted in the lease. And in that lease, there's a paragraph that says that something like we own the fuel. I mean,
There's a statement to the effect that the fuel farm is owned by the authority. Again, I don't know of the basis for that statement, but the MOU also says this is not a contract.
Yeah.
This is a memorandum in anticipation of making a contract.
Yeah.
So I don't know that statement, if there's some basis for that statement, something previous to it that would put the fuel farm squarely in the ownership of the authority, then I can understand, but I can't take that statement in and of itself and say that makes the authority the owner of the fuel farm.
So your answer to my question is, I don't know, right?
It's a long, I don't know. Yeah.
well, I would go more affirmative than that.
But if you pressed me on it, again, as of right now, I would have to say that the successor in interest to Teledyne is the owner of whatever improvements Teledyne made under their lease.
Regardless of that memorandum of understanding.
Correct.
Because we don't know what it's based on.
Correct.
So the question is, do we put the canopy back, or do we, or is it our responsibility to, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of issues there.
If it's single wall and it requires a canopy, I think that's a no-brainer. Whether the tires are there since we have it injured.
What about the canopy that's out there now? I mean, that seems to be working okay. I mean, it's $2,000 or $3,000 a month. Would that be an interim solution, or I mean, that fabric canopy?
We'll have to pay up sooner or later.
Yeah.
I mean, does it have a wind rating or anything? I mean, you don't-
We're not going to, for what, a hurricane?
Well, can't do the worst than the one we had.
All right, so,
So it looks like we need to put the canopy up since we have somebody on single wall fuel tank.
okay. And we have,
Because then if they failed and we owned them and that, and wound up being ours and then they failed and then the liability is not worth this $80,000.
Right.
In my opinion.
so that $80,000, we'll put the new canopy up. We'll do that, and we'll get approval to do the public safety hangar too. Is that, do I have approval to do that? And everything else, okay.
You need a motion.
I need a motion. I mean, I want the authority, I want to have the ability to enter, to get this work started.
But are we looking at all these items or just these two?
I would like to do, well, what I'd like to do is the public safety hangar, the field facility, if that's what we wish to do, the replacing the skylights in the south hangar, which have already been done, and put the doors back on the T hangars.
The middle T hangar?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
What about the north T hangar?
For the north T hangar, we don't have approval from the adjuster yet to do the work. they're gonna send an engineering team to basically monitor what we've done already and say, this is what we agree to pay for. So I can't come to you and ask for that. I mean, we haven't had the green light for them to do that.
So we do not have insurance approval to do the north hangar,
That's right.
the FBO south hangar office, wet carpet and tile.
Well, it's gonna be like, I mean, I think if the building's approved, I mean, it'll be under the deductible.
Okay.
It'll be only like
So we'll
$2,000.
be doing that, so not the north hangar, but yes on the FBO south hangar. And then the skylight's already done,
Yep,
not the north T hangars,
not the north, not the
but
north.
the public safety hangar. AWAS has been addressed already.
AWAS has been addressed, it works.
And the middle T hangars were good,
Middle T hangers are good,
and the fuel farm canopy.
yes.
But that doesn't include the first row, the north row T hangers, is that?
It includes, the $10,000 is for all the doors, not all the doors.
Yeah, nothing.
Not just for the, because there's some in the second hangar and some in the first hangar.
Yeah, first two rows, yeah.
Okay, so the north T hangar is good,
Yeah,
because
yes,
it's
sir.
got 3 doors. So really, we're talking everything but the
North hangar.
north hangar. I make a motion, we move forward with these estimates, subject to us addressing the cash required for our portion of the deductible. For everything except the north hangar.
Okay.
Okay, all right. I have a motion, a second. Can we, I want to, is everybody in favor of moving forward with the repairs to that were outlined in the spreadsheet as far as on the T hangars, the public safety hangars, the fuel facility, the canopy, and the FBO and the FBO?
Everything on this list but the north hangar.
But that's exactly right. There we go. Okay? And I'll get better estimates. I mean, these are, I'll try to get some better numbers, but on some of them, we're already above the deductible. I mean, I want to make sure I think I've got quality contractors working too, so that's a good thing. Okay? I have a motion, a second. All those who signify by approving the motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Thank y'all.
If Amy whips out $209,000, we're ready to roll.
All right, like we said earlier, we're gonna have a budget discussion now. Okay, he's updated the budget.
Okay, before we do that, for the hangar, for the east side hangars, if I want to get an insurance quote, what would be the value of the buildings?
For the proposed east side T hangars.
Would it be the?
Hangars themselves,
Yeah.
not counting the slabs, are going to be right around $600,000. Right, Hank?
Yeah, hangers with slabs are gonna be $760 for 2.
$760 for the 2.
That includes the slabs, so.
Do you insure the slab?
I don't know. I'll just tell them that's what, I'll just call Robbie in it.
$3.25 million.
Okay.
That 760 probably a pretty decent number because the electrical's broke out. That's still about 100,000 inside of that.
Okay.
Technically speaking, the slab's not going to go anywhere, you're insured with
Right.
anyway, but you might have to dig up footings to put down anchor bolts and all that, and not that storm.
Okay, then on the budget, we'll start on the page with revenue. And we can just go through this line by line. So for the fuel sales, I'm assuming just about the same as this year, 21,000. The city appropriation, I'm assuming, the same as this year, with the potential to reduce once we have new revenue sources. The public safety hangar rent just has a full year at the new rent, same, Continental stays the same. The ground leases are broken out down below. And in here, I did include $8,000 for that infrastructure surcharge for the west side. And we can talk about that at the end, but I do have that in here right now. I'm not assuming anything for hangar rent for the new hangars, just, I'm just going to assume that we wouldn't go forward unless we can break even on it with the loan service and insurance. So I'm not showing rent, loan service, or insurance for that in here. The interest income, that CD renewed at a very low rate, so we're not, there's good and bad of low interest rates right now. And then the land rent would be the same. And then I'm not assuming any FEMA reimbursement for any of this hurricane, unless we hear different. So,
Did I hear someone say, Amy, I don't know if you noticed, not that we do not collect rent on the public safety hangar while it's unusable?
You heard that, but they actually sent me a check. I mean,
I didn't hear that.
I had a conversation in our lease. I mean, the lease says they don't have to pay us while it's not usable,
Do
but.
we have loss of use insurance on that?
But Nick's been storing the helicopters, and we have a check for, they actually paid for October. So, I mean, but there is a paragraph in their lease that they don't have to pay if they can't use the hangar.
There's a provision in there, we probably shouldn't take their money, but we need to see if we have any loss of use income.
Well, I mean, they're still using, I mean, we're not storing them, but Nick is. And one of the planes had a hole in the wing, and it's not flyable anyway. That's, I mean, we won't cash a check, we won't deposit the check.
What's your opinion on that?
That's exactly what the lease says. Now, use can mean different things. I guess if they can still use it for storage purposes, then in essence, they're still using it. But I think it needs to be clarified with the state just to make sure that they are aware that they've paid and
I've
that
talked to
they're
their
comfortable with the fact
controller
that.
and told him it would be 30 to 45 days before we have it back up and running.
Well, I was going to ask, if we went with the motorized door, is that going to be a lot longer lead time?
I don't know that, but I can give you.
That's why I was asking, and then we wouldn't be getting rent because we were upgrading for them. So we need to kind of negotiate that with them.
I mean,
I think they can still use that office, man.
They can use the office, and they still use dispatch out of there. They still park their car. I mean,
They're still down there.
Yeah,
There's two
they're
of
still
them.
down there. Yeah.
On that motorized door concept, I talked to a couple of the guys that fly for the state police, and they would rather not have a motorized door.
really?
They would rather have a sliding door, different than they have now, or had now, but they have some definite thoughts on that ought to be a lot less expensive.
Well, I mean, they told me they wanted, John Trimble told me he wanted a folding door, just like, so we'll get to,
Well, John Trimble was exactly the person I spoke with today, so,
that's a change.
yeah.
Well, and who's the decision maker for the state?
Well, I mean, but as our hangar, doesn't it become more valuable if it has an electric folding door?
Well, his argument was if you lose power for another extended period of time, you can't access your airplanes.
That's right.
So makes sense.
They'd rather have a sliding door.
They would rather have a sliding door, yeah, that sort of 1, 2, 3 slides behind each other. That's the best I can explain it. But,
Like the Continental doors.
yeah, that's right. But he definitely did not want, because of the power outages, a power door, a hydraulic electric door.
We'll get with him on that.
Okay, I'll leave that in here, just put a risk $15.61 a month while we're potential lost revenue. Okay, so that is the revenue page. Any questions on that? For expenses, I added 10% for insurance. I know at work they're telling us to expect 20% increase on property insurance, so I'm not sure that's quite enough, but there's something for increase. Travel would be about the same, bank fees about the same. Legal service is less. We had extra in last year, as you remember, the IRS audit. So we're not expecting to have to do that again. Professional services, this is the extra accounting. Since we don't meet the threshold to do that single audit, we won't have that this year either. And then the office in general should be a little bit less. There were some one-time charges for the website upgrades, so now we're just maintaining. The general airport maintenance has gone up significantly, and this is where I've put the hurricane repairs. So there's a box at the bottom that breaks this out. So I took out the new gate we had talked about. I kept in the west side infrastructure, assuming it's going to be offset by that new infrastructure surcharge until that's paid. I've got $5,000 for lights. That seems to be normal. And then preventative and corrective maintenance along with the hurricane repairs.
Things break.
Things break. Okay. Then for the electricity, I did assume an increase here just because of the new
Bigger
airport. Yep. The bond interest, I have not assumed anything in here for the refinance that we're pursuing. I'm saying anything that we would potentially reduce if we refinance in the spring would be offset by legal fees. So we wouldn't see any savings in this coming fiscal year. And then just the regular debt service principal payment. And yeah, and this is, we didn't allocate anything to do the 5% grant match since that isn't required this year. So that's it.
There's no match on our AIP money this year.
So if we put this together on the next page, we're coming into the month of October with $330,000 in our accounts and the CD that we have. So if you go all the way to the bottom of the page, with the projected revenue expenses, we would have a net loss of $200,000. So that would basically deplete everything we have except for that $100,000 CD.
Yeah, that jumps out.
And then there's just some references on the side to see how we're comparing to prior years, just for.
We did a good job of managing expenses in 2019, 2020, and revenues were a little bit off over the 5 years, but that was because we reduced our subsidy from the city by $90,000 over the last 5 years. So we do a good job of managing expenses as a authority. But if we approve this budget, we're going to take all our reserves and pay, we're going to basically do the west side infrastructure and the repairs of the airport.
Jack had recommended that we seek some FEMA reimbursement if possible.
I think that's a great idea.
Josh recommended that really needs to go back through the city as our sponsor. By approving our insurance money, are we jeopardizing that opportunity?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, if that's something we need to that I can look into, I will. But we may need to look at that before.
Stacy McQueen, who does grant work for the city and has done some work for us before, I'm meeting with her next week, and I brought that up. Is there FEMA money to help us? I think if Jack seemed to think since we are consolidated in the city's financials that we could use that as a vehicle too. So I mean, we're not going to take the insurance money. I mean, those things are being investigated. I was told there may be FEMA money out there for things like this.
I mean, the city's our sponsor, the
Yes, that's
city
right.
is helping fund us each year on our bond
Yep.
issue, we're intermingled.
And we're consolidated for financial purposes under them, so, yeah.
I mean, my thought was because the city is a sponsor from the FAA perspective, that it stands to reason that FEMA would look at it the same way. I don't know that for sure, but that was my view of it, so.
And you go have that meeting next week.
Next week, she emailed me this today. And what I'd like to do, Vince, is just become part of the city's, if they're gonna make a proposal, be part of whatever the city does. And let our numbers are pretty much would supplement what they're doing.
I'm gonna ask one more question, be quiet. 1/4% interest on that CD, that's all we get?
And that's what it renewed at, I mean.
23 basis points.
Do what?
yeah.
23 basis points is what it renewed at. It was 124 the year before.
Yeah, it was good.
But
I'm talking about the 1/4% we're getting on the CD.
that's, yeah. I mean, last year, it was 1.24 it renewed in August. It was 1.24.
You're talking about the bond issue, I'm talking about the $100,000 CD.
We're talking about the same thing.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 0.23, yeah. I mean, not even worth.
We might have to move it, but we can get more money than
Yeah.
that. We can get triple it,
Okay.
easy. Tomorrow.
You want to ask for a motion to approve the budget?
Yeah. Do we have a motion to approve the budget as is, or any discussion of changes?
Motion to approve the budget.
Have a second?
Second.
And all those in favor of approving the budget as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Okay. How about the attorney's report?
Subpart A, update on negotiations with tenants for P11. That lease is finalized and ready for execution, so I have not heard anything by way of trying to schedule a closing to sign the lease and deliver the deposits. I will, and Joe, I apologize, I haven't been able to reach out to his lawyer yet, but I'll reach out to his lawyer to find out where they stand on that. If they don't consummate the lease within the next 30 days, it would be the current policy would be that hangar pad would go back out to prospective tenants. So hopefully they will do that within, prior to the next board meeting. But if not, then we would have that hangar pad available for other tenants that may be interested in it. Subpart B, approvals to prepare a Phase 1 environmental study for hangars on the east side is required by the individual leases. The leases as written for the east side contain language to the effect that the authority has a Phase 1 environmental study. We reached out to Volkert and they provided us with an environmental assessment that was done back in 2013. But that's not the same thing as a Phase 1 environmental study. So the question would be, I suppose, does the board go forward with a Phase 1 environmental study, or do we negotiate with the tenants on the east side just to remove that language from the lease?
It's in the individual leases. I'm not sure the value it adds, but, I mean, the banks, since it's in the leases, the banks that are lending us the the money want to see it. We can do one for $2,500, either Goodwin Mills and Kaywood or Thompson Engineering. Either one will do one, which will cover everything forever and ever on the east side. So, you know, I'm not sure the value add of a phase one, but we did ask for it in the lease, and we've asked for it in the other leases that we've done too, so.
How much is it? We have to pay it?
We have to pay it.
How much is it? It's not
$2,500.
on the budget.
So it would do our future south side also when we finish our whole round?
It would do all, like 19 acres. That's what I delineated as our study area. There's no sense to just do each hangar pad. That's stupid. So we would do the whole east side, if you will, in one environmental assessment.
Diamond Air did the fuel farm option, they're going to have a fuel farm?
If they continue, yes, it's drafted in such a way that they are reserving one of the fuel farm locations on the east side. So again, obviously that assumes that they close and deliver the deposits and so forth. But what they have requested is the hangar pad P11 as drawn, and the ability to reserve one of the two fuel farms on the east side if and when the infrastructure is prepared.
$2,500 could be cheap 30 years from now. If they have a fuel farm
I
and they're
understand.
fueling their jet there, it could be cheap 5 years from now.
That's the purpose, is it's an insurance for us to basically say, you know, this clean now and it'll be clean. You know, we gave it to you as clean.
Cheap insurance.
All right, so we need a motion to spend that $2,500.
I make a motion, we spend it once we have an executed lease with someone on the east side.
Well, we do have, to that end, we have an executed lease for hangar pad P10 with Mr. McNeil's company on the east side. And he did reserve one of the fuel farm locations as well.
Do I have a second to that? Okay, all those in favor of reaching out and get a phase one environmental study, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I'm opposed.
What?
I'm opposed because we don't have it in the budget. So, maybe we should do the budget again if you.
No, we're flexible. All right, Continental Aerospace's report.
Hey, everybody.
Is that mic on?
Sir?
Is the little green light on your mic?
It's on.
Okay.
I just wasn't close. All right, let's start the update on the abandoned aircraft at the airport. Well, I'd say it's semi-abandoned. We talk with him every month to try to get it out of there. He hasn't removed it yet, so he signed a lease for $50 a month, just like a normal. Oh, you are there. So until it's removed.
Okay.
Actually,
And I'm gonna keep it on here until it gets moved. That's just the way I do it.
I didn't know I was on the
Who you are.
you are every month.
I'm a customer now.
Discussion on the key cards for the south and north gates. Of course, you know, as always, we're definitely open to that. I would, you know, all the hangar leases on the south side have that, and then control the north gate a little more with who has those cards, and, you know, just to keep
Well,
the
I
traffic
mean, I
on the
wanna-
north side less.
Chairman, you know, we're gonna be cash strapped this year, so putting new gates on the east side is gonna be a challenge. So that just may have to be a deferred item for next year.
Okay.
Okay? I'm gonna take that out. We'll revisit it in July of next year.
Okay. All right, and discussion on the vacant hangars, which,
Chip?
I mean, I'm checking with most airports around the state of Alabama. They have a policy if someone leases a hangar and they sell their airplane, they give them, most of them, vary between 6 and 9 months to buy another airplane before they have to give up their rights to that. I think, you know, I think that's good policy. I think as far as, I mean, you know, if someone wants to buy an airplane,
Yeah.
you know, that they've been a good customer.
You don't wanna make someone give up a hangar just because they don't have an airplane.
I think we'll do probably, I mean, that's what we probably would consider doing on the east side, I think, too, so.
So would you have a motion to make that our policy 9 months or 6 months? 9 months?
I'd say 9 is fine, because it does take a period of time sometimes to shop.
Okay. So all those in favor of adopting that policy on our vacant hangars, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we
We
now
didn't
have
ever get a
a,
second.
what?
He made a motion, we didn't ever get a second.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do I have a second to Chip's motion? Okay. All right, all those in favor of, of adopting a policy on vacant hangars, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
They're still paying rent on those 9 months.
Yes.
But they can't sublease it either.
Yeah, the key is we don't want, we want to control the hangars. And that's a subtlety of it. So, all right, all those in favor say aye, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay. We now have a hangar policy. Next, in discussion of closing the airport and issuing NOTAMs. Chip, you want to talk about that?
Well, I think the only issue that came up after the hurricane was that y'all had issued a note to close the airport. No one was aware of it, so,
Well, I was aware of it, but after the fact.
yeah. So, I don't know if we need to somehow come up with a policy of the no-dams issue, just make sure someone on the board is notified that they can say that.
And that kind of went with, whatever, letter E, you know,
Yeah,
just kind of our lessons
Yeah.
learned, our, you know, what's our comm schedule, who, you know.
I
who
mean, I
do
think the
need to
chairman and the
notify?
vice chairman should be noticed, and we'll concur on 90% of the time, but I don't want to be called by somebody saying, well, I didn't know your airport was closed.
And, you know, and that goes basically to E, as far as lessons
Okay.
learned.
All right, so that's, yeah. Okay, go ahead, that's.
Yeah, I think that was one of the key, just the communications is part of our lessons learned. You know, internally, Continental, we had our thing, you guys had yours. One of the things I'd like to do next year is prior to storm season, us get together and
Practice.
just go over the whole emergency plan, make sure everybody's aligned.
Good idea. Y'all did y'all have a copy of our emergency plan or not? So that's just.
I never saw it before, and I'd say we didn't have it's just,
We just, if you didn't have it, the key guy.
yeah. And, you know, just go over, just the roles, responsibilities, communications, how we're gonna do NOTAMs.
And I think
The-
security's another issue.
If the gate opened, the gate, when the power went off,
Gate open.
the gate stayed open. which
It
was-
stayed open, it's not doing that
Stayed
anymore.
open, that's a problem. Okay.
Yeah, and that was one of the things, just for the security aspect, either, you know, like I said, in the emergency plans, have police there, of course, they didn't come, but at least we could keep the gates shut, keep the spectators out.
There are a lot of them.
And those gates be wired to our generator?
We talked about that.
Yeah, and that was one of the other items I wanted to bring up, and that is that if the gates were, and also if we wired up the FBO, then the fuel pumps, that's one reason we kind of shut down, we had,
We got this
only what
really
was in
nice
the trucks.
generator that we're paying $1,000, $1,200 a year to maintain, and all it does is keep the runway line, keep the PAPI, I mean, we could do other things with it.
So if we could at least wire the
It's gotta be
FBO.
wired to the main power of the building right now, so
Yeah.
it's just a matter of adding the fuel farm
And
and
it's,
the gate.
and I think it's plenty powerful to keep the lights on, I mean,
Shower the FBOs.
It doesn't right now,
Yeah.
but that would be nice, then it would power the fuel farm, because the FBOs, or the fuel farm's fed off the FBO power.
yeah.
That's something we ought to just look into.
No, I think that's a great idea. That's on your lessons learned, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
That's all right now, nothing.
Are you gonna send me a copy of your, kind of a
Bullets.
bullet points of lessons learned, and we'll enter those into the,
Yes, sir, I'm gonna email those to you, I just wanted to make sure we didn't have any more tonight.
anybody else have any, Chip? Any more?
Dave's done a good job with monitoring the pavement on the west side. Almost everyone but one person reads his email.
Yeah.
And Nick's done a great job doing it. I mean, this has been a tough time. I mean, this has
I
been
mean, I
a
think that
challenge.
whole part, that thing's worked out well. He's kept everyone in the loop, and it really looks, I mean, it's great.
You know,
Everyone that's in the hangars down there, it's been a great, it will be a great improvement.
And the challenge was after the hangar on the north side, I mean, they run a factory up there. You know, they couldn't operate for 2 weeks in the north hangar, which was, and Nick, you know, we were scrambling, and sometimes our contractors didn't show up, but they brought a contractor that seemed to do good work and brought him, you know, got things jump-started, and he really did yeoman's work, as did Steve. Okay?
But thank you, guys, you know, like I said, I guess next year we do this lessons learned, and maybe we schedule something pre-storm each year to just go over, because I may move, or Steve may move, or you guys may retire. But, I thought overall, we accomplished everything, it just, caused a little headache sometimes when we weren't communicating as good as we should.
Complicated thing. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Hank, engineers report?
All right, so on the agenda, it says grant application, but that should be the pre-application, not the grant application. Pre-applications go in November, and then grant applications go in either May or June. So what we have ready right now is we do have the pre-app prepared to go. I think Jordan called you today, talked to you about a resolution. The DOT does require a resolution, even though you don't have any match for the reimbursement that we're going to submit. It's part of their check-in system to their AMPS program. So basically, the resolution just needs to be sent to the city council to say you intend to submit a grant application in June, and that the city will not be obligated to any match money.
So this is for aldot, not the FAA?
It is for aldot.
Okay.
Yes, not for the FAA. So the pre-app's ready to go. Once we get that resolution, then we can upload that into aldot system, send that in. I did talk to Taylor Janey with aldot this afternoon concerning the swapping of hands to the new mayor that takes place November 1st. So when we submit that grant application, there's going to be an email sent to whoever is the authorized signatory for that submission, and it comes to them. So in this case, I guess that'd be Ms. Sherry. She'll have to have that, we'll have to have that email set up so that she can click that button and approve it, basically.
What's happened is over the last 9 months, everything's become electronic, all documents, and I mean, we sometimes get documents lost, but we'll figure it out. This time we've got only a pretty short time frame. We have to approve that document the 2nd or the 1st.
November 2nd, it has to be submitted.
So I think we can figure that out.
Yeah, and when I talked to Taylor, he said just let us know if we're having any hiccups with the swapping of that. If we need a day or two, they'll work with us. They understand.
Okay.
What is this for? The east side?
No, ma'am, this is just to seek the reimbursement of money. You get $150,000 of entitlement every year from the FAA. The plan is right now to get reimbursed for either land acquisition or the construction of the east side hangars.
From the state?
Well, it'll come from the FAA, and the state has 5% included with it.
Okay.
It comes through the state, but it's
Okay.
really FAA.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, Amy,
Okay.
the state is just the bank for the FAA. We have to send everything through the
Okay.
state.
Okay. Threw me off. Okay.
All right, and then approval of the revised hangar for Plat P10. From what we've seen on the original submission, they are compliant with all FAA rules and regulations with the north entrance for the hangar with the
Yeah.
door facing north. There's no complaints from the FAA. We have verified that with them. They followed suit with what we saw, so we don't see any issues with it from an FAA perspective.
I'd like to get the board to approve the north-facing hangar for P10 on the plat plan. It's in your package.
We have to amend their lease also.
I'm not sure why.
Then they build that second one.
Yeah, but I mean, are we going to try to capture the second hangar in this lease?
Well, we don't have to, but we need to approve that that's where it's gonna be, so we don't have to talk about it 2 years from now.
Or 4 years?
When he says, I'm gonna put it 20 feet farther, and we say no. So we might not amend this lease, but we need to amend our conversation that this is the extent of this lease, which is farther than it was originally.
12 feet farther. Josh, how's the best way to do that?
Wait, the lease premises are actually changing? Then we would need to amend that part.
No. If they build the second hangar, they'll go over 12 feet farther. When they build the second, they'll go over 12 feet farther going north than the actual leasehold now.
Right, so,
But they're not, I mean, they're not asking for approval for the second hangar. They're just showing conceptually that a second hangar can be built there.
yeah, I understand, but the second hangar, when built, would not fit within the existing leased premises, if I'm understanding.
That's not true. They could make it 60 feet, not 70 feet.
What he's proposing.
Yeah, what he's
will not fit
proposing.
within the existing lease.
Okay, so, and that's a second, so, but the first hangar, the first proposed hangar is entirely within the current footprint of the leased premises? Okay, because under the lease, he has to come back to the authority for any new improvements that'll be put on the property. I don't know that we need to, we can amend the lease to add the additional square footage at this time. I don't know that we necessarily have to. No, like you said, we may not want to deal with it 2 years from now. We may just want to go ahead and have it done.
I'm not saying we need to get extra money from them, but if this is proposal, we need to approve this, and then later on, we could say yes or no if he wants to change it again.
Mhm.
This is the third time this one's been changed.
So
Right.
you'd be okay
And-
adding 12 feet north, but not asking that for additional money,
No.
please?
Not yet, not till we take it.
Right, and not ask for additional money, but I'm not being ugly,
No,
but
no,
this
you're-
is
I
the
mean,
third change to this layout.
We won't remember it 5 years from now. We'll have, who owns the fuel farm?
Well, then it might want to go another 100 feet,
Yeah.
and we can lock it down and make that decision then. That's all I'm saying.
Now, Hank, do we have to amend the East Area layout plan if we extend this leased premises at
No,
all?
we do not. We can update it as you change it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
We're actually in the process of that master plan update, so whatever gets approved by the board, we can revise that to match
Okay,
up.
all right, then what we would need is, I guess, the updated survey from Goodwin Mills we seem to bug them a lot, but, yeah, we would need the updated survey to amend the lease premises, and that would be an amendment
So
to the lease.
let's get an approval to increase by 12 feet. We'll get an updated survey, but we won't charge for the additional leasehold until a certain time they actually.
If he builds the
If he
building.
builds it, we'll charge. That's fair.
Okay.
And I guess, is anyone talking to him about that south part, it's gonna have to come up another, 4 feet, if he wants to park cars there?
We're-
We're not talking cars outside, we pulled everything out, we pulled plans to put our cars in.
Okay. Okay, it looked like there was a canopy on the south side, so I just.
You'll just be able to pull your car in.
Yeah. So if you want to park on the south side, you need 4 more feet.
We don't have any concessions.
Okay.
Parking in
Yeah, because this new plan's got 3 parking on the side.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so do I have a motion and a second? Do I have a motion? Do I have a second of that motion? To do a revised lease plan, but with no additional fees, and just have it for the records. We have, okay. All those in favor, we have of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, thank y'all. Okay, now the capital improvement plan.
Okay, the capital improvement plan, as we said before, we're seeking reimbursement. What you see on, even though it shows construct 10-unit T hangars and access taxiways, you'll notice where it says federal funds, we're not seeking federal funds for that right now. That's going to all be owner provided. And then we were going to turn in, or we're submitting a state grant application for a terminal building. So you can submit it, and if you decide not to move forward, that's fine. They're not going to give you money until you do decide to move forward with it. And and then the reimbursement, the $150,000 that you can apply back to the land acquisition of that 60 acres where all this stuff is happening on the east side. And then 2022, we'll be going after another $150,000 worth of reimbursement. This time you could apply it to the taxiway construction that you do for the hangar, or anything that's FAA eligible. And then after talking with the FAA, the 2023 mark is when we want to look at strengthening the runway to get the capacity up to support the larger aircraft. So from there, then it's just a matter of everything in 2024, 25, 26 are kind of just placeholders. The FAA is looking for about 2 to 3 years worth that they can plan for, and the biggest thing they're gonna be planning for you guys is the runway work. So,
We ever get the numbers back on the structure?
we do have numbers back. We're in the middle of reviewing those. We actually got those numbers yesterday. I have some questions about the numbers that they sent back. I think just because of some operations that took place that show up on FAA's website of actual operations that took place over planes that are over capacity for that runway, it has impacted that PCN significantly. And so I'm in the middle of having conversations with getting those planes as shown as not coming there. But at the same time, they don't need to come there anymore because they affect your PCN. The larger the airplane is that land there, the more it impacts your runway.
So you think we're having an impact now from those larger airplanes coming in?
Visually, I haven't looked at it. I just know from when the method used to calculate the pavement classification number, when larger airplanes, planes that exceed the capacity of that runway, land on it, they're getting plugged into that equation. So every time it touches down, it's reducing your PCN. So basically, in short, I'll just go ahead and tell you right now, your PCN, based on what we're seeing, is you can land a crop duster on there because of overcapacity planes landing on that runway right now that are showing up in the FAA's flight line.
What- I mean, are we only can run a line? I mean,
Every plane you bring in over capacity, you bring in a plane over 58,000 pounds, you're going against what your FAA's 5010 states.
But they don't know the actual landing weight of the airplane, so they just.
Well, they know the max takeoff weight.
What?
They know the max takeoff weight. So if he lands, he's got to take off.
Yeah, but that's
So-
the max weight. A lot of
That's
times
not the
they're
fuel.
well under that weight. I mean, one of the planes that, can
But the
exceed-
thing is, he can be.
Yeah.
so we'll have a discussion of this in the November meeting.
Yeah. I got to do some more digging, but at the same time, I'm going to encourage you to not have planes of 135,000 pounds landing on your runway.
Where do we hit that off?
That came straight off of the FAA's website.
No, I mean, how do we make them stop?
I don't know, but
Whether we do a NOTAM or put something in the,
yeah. But those operations got logged into that history of planes landing.
how far do they go back?
August 2019. Yeah, but they're recent.
So you're saying the potential of that on calculating deteriorates the quality of our runway, although it might not be deteriorated. But-
Well, it impacts your runway because it's twice the limit of what the capacity of the runway is designed to handle.
I agree with Chip.
They're just assuming that they're using their max takeoff.
That's exactly what they're
You know,
doing.
one
They have,
operator,
yeah.
They always stay under one.
Yeah. But nonetheless, even if they stayed under it, they're still gonna be over 58,000.
But for your calculation, your algorithm says uses 138.
Well, the numbers that they use to calculate by is the max takeoff weight. It is. Because they have no way of knowing what the weight of that aircraft was when it touched down or when it took off.
But we get 10 lives, what if they all took off under the allowable weight, we're gonna get 10 lives for it, even though
Yeah.
they adhere to the runway line.
Yeah. In other words, you have, when they calculate that PCN, it's looking for a critical aircraft. And so the best way to determine what that critical aircraft is to figure out what the largest aircraft is that's been using the runway. And so naturally, that's the one that's impacting your pavement the most. And those operations that were coming in, I think it was eight or 9 or something like that.
Every 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So
So,
would we be doing a good job if we did what Chip suggested and we issued a NOTAM?
Mhm.
That way, it's
Yeah.
not buried somewhere, it's already printed.
it's gonna show up in the FAA's flight log.
But if we issued a NOTAM, it's not buried in the facilities directory somewhere.
Yeah.
We just make that permanent until we upgrade our run.
Yeah. And I did talk to Graham this morning about it and said, hey, have you ever run into situations like this before? Because I don't feel like they can use this as a critical aircraft. It's something that's landed just a few times. It's not something that's been showing up here every single day or anything like that, but they're using that, and it's bringing the PCN value way, way down to crop duster level, which means you can't pull the jets out of them hangars that's over there now and take off. You know, so that, in other words, with the report they've given me, they've told me to list it at a certain number. If we list it at that number, half your operations go away.
If we did get a runway project, would they do it over 2 years or would they do it over 1 year? Would they
If you get a
stay-
runway project, it won't come before
No, but
2023.
if we got it, would they do it like they did the East project stage?
No.
They're just at one.
Yeah, that would be one project, you'd do the whole runway strengthening. But it's just laying asphalt, you're just laying pavement on top of pavement.
How
So
long would that project take?
probably, time you issue notice to proceed, they're probably done in 60 days. I'm talking about from notice to proceed to the end. The actual paving application probably ain't gonna take no more than about 4 weeks.
Okay. I'm just wondering how long the airport has to be shut down.
No, we'd do it at night.
All right.
You know what I mean? Where you'd still have operations during the day, and they would have to tie in pavements and whatnot, joints and stuff to make it that meet FAA requirements. And, you know, even, we've done it at Mobile Regional where they could only work from 12 to 5.
And just so everybody's on the same page, if this report shows that we need the strengthening, our runway improvement would be one of the higher priorities. I mean, it would be a high priority. We would have a really good chance in 2 years of getting a runway strengthening.
It's gonna rank high.
Yeah.
It's gonna rank high as far as in the eyes of the FAA. But the strengthening's basically to support getting larger aircraft in here, because right now it's undersized. The FAA's already planned for that by letting the east side development get brought up to 90,000-pound aircraft, where right now you're at 58,000 on your runway and parallel taxiway. So they know you're gonna need a rehabilitation of the runway, so they'll strengthen it at the same time they rehabilitate.
Is there any enforcement action if our number comes back really bad? And you say nothing but crop dust. Is there any enforcement action?
Not really. I mean, what we have to do is I have to make sure the FAA's okay with, well, first off, I've got to get the one that generated the number to understand that we can't use that one aircraft that has got the most impact. We can't list that as part of as an aircraft in that equation. So I've got to get him to pull that out and rerun the calculation, get the PCM where it is, and then whenever we're comfortable with what we see and what matches what goes on every day at the airport, make him republish the report with a number that's more realistic.
If you're not successful in that, you're not going to close down there.
No. And the thing is even right now, even if you don't modify your 5010 as it is right now, you can still land aircraft up to 58,000 pounds right now. You just wouldn't make the modification.
Do you recommend we do or don't issue a note of the other thing?
I think you issue a note on the aircraft over 58,000 dual wheel main gear configuration does not land on its runway.
Prohibited.
That's my
Do we
recommendation.
need to say subject to emergency?
Yeah, you can say that. I mean, planes need to adhere to what's listed on the FAA's website, the 5010. If they adhere to that, then any plane above that, you're just running the risk of,
Emergency is emergency.
yeah, whatever's got it. I mean, C-130 or whatever needs to land there can do that in an emergency. That's a different situation. And pavements aren't going to just fall apart just from one airplane landing on it. It's repeated use of extra heavy loads on pavements that's not suitable for it. You know?
It's still kind of an inaccurate calculation, because they just assuming they're using their max takeoff.
Well, and then they're assuming the frequency too. And the frequency, what impacts it the most, the repeated use of that, basically, it breaks it down to where you don't have anything suitable.
We'll have a discussion of this next month.
Well, then what we'll do, we're gonna talk to the guys that actually ran the numbers. We got all the field information, all that stuff came in. We just need to talk to them about how they came about using that plane in their equation and then work it out. And then on the airport layout plan, that's the master plan. That is ongoing, all the 2-foot contours that we had Quantum, the aerial photography, and the LiDAR information is in. We've got that brought down into CAD files, and we're making drawings and doing everything required by the FAA, so that process is ongoing right now. So we are moving forward with that. Then I skipped the seal coat. That is planned to be, the seal coat is planned to be finished by Friday, weather pending. The seal coat itself, and then temporary markings Wednesday, you said, Jordan. And that project's actually gone pretty good. If you hadn't been out there to see it, it looks real good. We're happy with it. We're happy with the work they've been doing, so we're gonna let them keep rocking on. And then the access road, when was they planning on paving? Thursday. So they already got the embankment built for that. They put rock base down, and we look to have asphalt on it by Thursday, Friday, weather pending. So your 2 jobs for this year will be wrapped up in a matter of a couple of weeks.
Anything else for Hank while he's here?
Does the board need to approve the capital improvement plan for 2021 to
Yeah.
2029?
Yeah, they do need to make a motion to approve it as it is.
I make the motion, we approve the airport capital improvement plan as presented.
All those in favor of approving the capital improvement plan for 2021 to 2029, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? CIP plan is approved. Thank you, Hank, and I appreciate your being here.
Not a problem.
Item 11 is approval of an infrastructure surcharge for prospective tenants on the airport. I'll give some history of this. You know, obviously, the airport has spent a lot of money, almost $10 million to build these side structures out. We will always be in a cash-strapped position for new infrastructure projects. We were brainstorming, and we talked to some other airports, most notably Gulf Shores, and they have an implementation of an infrastructure charge, if you will. There's nothing magic about this number, 40 cents a square foot, but it does help us get some cash flow into some infrastructure projects that we need. Chip, do you want to elaborate?
Well, I think in Gulf Shores specifically, it's just for, it's for where the FAA doesn't fund infrastructure. It's where they charge a fee for infrastructure. I talked to the chairman of the airport authority up in Bessemer, and they've never paid for any infrastructure for any hangar that's been built. Everyone has to pay for their own. So that's, I mean, if we were able to get FAA funding, then that would be a different story. Or if we got reimbursed down the road with FAA funding, we'll work out, you know, some type of credit or something. I'll just put that out there if we work it.
How would this work if we had a second tenant on the southwest side?
Well, I think you would prorate it, be a thought. So it all ends up getting evened out at the end of the day.
So there's some, I mean, even though we think this is a good concept, we probably need to sit down and, you know, the devil's in the details. Is that fair? What needs to be done? Does anybody else have any thoughts on this? Will?
No. I don't.
So what's the idea? It would be 40 cents a square foot per year until the infrastructure is paid for?
Yeah, until the infrastructure is paid for, or you get another person there and you prorate it.
Yeah.
You know, prorate, you know, the other tenant could use the infrastructure too. I mean, you know, if you build a 500, two people could use fire protection.
Okay. Because, I mean, I did bake this into the budget, so.
What are we calling infrastructure?
I'd say fire protection, water, electricity. That would be what I would consider.
Roads,
What?
roads,
The road?
road.
Joe, does that imply that the authority is going to pick up those expenses for the southwest corner and get reimbursed by the 40 cents per foot?
I mean, I think that's what was in the budget. What was the 53,000 was in the budget?
Yeah, okay.
I thought that was just water and fire protection,
That's not the road.
not the road.
That's not the road.
Just electricity.
Electricity.
Fire protection and water,
Yeah.
portable water, potable water. I mean, natural gas, I don't see any reason to have natural gas. What about what about internet connectivity? Everybody's got a wireless now. The only thing I can think of is sanitary sewer. I mean, it's but my recommendation to them is that we do some type of, septic system, if somebody wanted to build on the west side. I mean, that's what we've got on the east side.
What would the city require on that? Anybody in your group, Don Hanson, know about that? For the sewer system? So the question is, would a septic tank work? Well, there's no running sewer line around there anyway, I don't think. I don't know.
I mean, no, you'd have to build a lift station, and we went through that on the east side. It was really expensive.
And I just say we don't need to.
Yeah.
We're
Hold it.
No, seriously, would a portalet suffice for a while? I don't know, I'm just asking. That work too?
There's always compost toilets.
Okay, so
I'll plant a tree out back.
do we have a
We
motion?
have an engineer.
Do I have a motion to approve an infrastructure charge of 40 cents a square foot for those, for places where we don't have infrastructure now? And I was thinking, like, if we have to build a fuel facility or containment vessel on the east side, that we could use it, we don't have the money for that. We could use it there too. Right, for the fuel facility vents. And that would cover that. That would be covered too.
Yeah, we really need to define what infrastructure is in,
Okay.
if we're gonna do that. We can't pick and choose as we
Pick and
go
choose
along, so
infrastructure.
we don't have that under infrastructure.
Well, in essence, they were saying if it's not FAA paid for, then
Yeah,
The infrastructure.
yeah.
Not reimbursed.
Non-reimbursable, yeah, things at the airport.
Let me ask you a question. Is the intent on this 40 cents based on the assumption that we rescind the 53.5 and then that becomes the number that we're using, the number 13? Is that the intent?
That was the
Without
intent.
saying it?
That was the intent.
Wait,
It hasn't been said, that's why I'm asking. If we rescind the 53,005 under item number 13, are we doing number 11 at 40 cents a square foot until that dollar amount's reimbursed? 'Cause we're not
That's the way
saying
I-
that.
that's the way I
We're
understand.
tying the two together. Is that the intent?
They are separate, but there is an intent there.
Okay.
so at the time of the lease, I guess you would say there's this much infrastructure and you're gonna pay 40
Well, in that
cents.
case, we're going to have electricity and fire hydrant only as infrastructure,
Yes.
and water.
For this lease.
But also, it could end up being less than 53,000.
Sure.
That was my question.
Yeah.
I think initially the 53,000 was envisioned as us contracting for it, and maybe getting it done for less than that with the savings accruing to the authority. How does this work, the 40 cents?
I think it would apply up until the amount of money we spend on infrastructure and then
Just
stop.
use-
Then it stops, yeah.
I mean, we still are motivated to get the infrastructure done as cheaply as possible.
Yeah.
And we're not, yeah. And I think one of the things Amy brought up is, that we own the infrastructure. I mean, we don't want someone else, this is the airport, we want to own the infrastructure that services the southwest side.
Well, to that effect, Vince and everybody else, Mark Dowsey gave me a quote today for a boring boring a hydrant line and a separate 1-inch water supply for $50,566. So that is not as less, it's not as inexpensive as I was hoping, but, you know, someone mentioned some months ago it might take $15,000 to run power from Riviera. We had to pay Riviera to do that. Anyway, so I don't think it can be dollar for dollar. This $53,500, if we're trying to make that the maximum of our expenditure, that doesn't really work
I
out.
think that was just kind of an estimate.
It was just an estimate.
Okay, good.
Use that figure, 'cause that's,
You saying Dowsey, and that's from boring under the road to get the fire hydrant?
Yes, it is. A-Long Boring was the company he was using. And Dowsey, for the record, has no money in this. He's just doing this as a favor.
So what you're saying is the 40 cents might wind up being applied to 75,000, or if we got lucky, it'd be applied to 40,000.
Well, yeah, and future projects. There's a gentleman that's talked about putting some hangars on, up after the Hanson Group finishes theirs. Well, then that's another 40 cents. Whatever ground lease he or she has would be another source of income to help us pay for that. So that's the idea.
But it can't be a dollar for dollar based on the 53, because we really don't know what that number is.
We don't know what that.
Yeah, we don't know what that number is. That's right.
But then we would have to specify that this lease is water, fire, electricity, and that's it.
Okay, I'm
If
okay
we
with
don't, we're
that.
gonna spend
And then,
$150,000.
that's fine. We won't let, I mean, we're not gonna let, we're not gonna put sewer and roads, so I'm for, I think that would close it up, would tighten it up a little bit more.
So for each lease, it would be specified what
The three.
what is required.
That's the three we were talking about, were water, fire hydrant, and electricity to begin with.
Yeah.
When we offered to do that, so that ought to be the three that we put in there, in my opinion.
For this lease.
Yes, ma'am.
And then if somebody wants to
For
build
this, yeah.
some other place, they might need.
And Josh, how would we document this? Is this the amendment to the lease?
Yes, it would be an amendment to the lease on the 40 cents a square foot until the infrastructure is paid for. And then, like y'all already talked about, with subsequent leases, the infrastructure surcharge would be in there, but perhaps at some prorated amount. I mean, we don't have a crystal ball to know who's going to come to the southwest side and want to build additional hangars, but we do know that once that dollar figure, whatever it is paid for, there's not going to be any further infrastructure charge. So it will need to be an amendment to the current tenant's lease, and then if that money is still being reimbursed when we have a subsequent tenant, that surcharge will be in there at some level that I guess the board would determine. If it's a proration, that's fine, but I mean, whatever is designed to ultimately get that infrastructure reimbursed to the authority, the cost of the infrastructure, I should say.
I don't think it would be fair to have the infrastructure paid by the first 1 or 2 or 3 tenants, and then the 4th or 5th tenant gets in scot-free. I don't have the wisdom of Solomon on this, but I think everybody ought to pay in.
And I agree with that from a fairness standpoint. I'm just trying to think of it, how you structure that when you don't know when those tenants are going to come in. But I completely agree that we should make it as equitable as possible for all the tenants that could be over there.
that's, the Gulf Shores, they did theirs, they knew exactly how many lots they had. So they had infrastructure put in, they divided it up by that. So they knew exactly how much was going to be built, where in this case.
Well, that makes sense. Maybe we ought to plat that thing out.
No, because if we did, it was like 32 lots. And it
So?
could take forever to build that out.
Maybe not.
Not ever, but.
Well, a builder could pick up more than one lot, too.
Hank, do you have any idea how many square feet we can get over there? Using the same assumption of the Hanson size going south? I mean, not off the top of your head, but you could tell us that.
7 or 8 hangars that were, I'd say, equal to 8 units and 10 units, which would be, what's that, 255, 40? So,
10,000?
Well, the hangars we're talking about building on the east side are 265 by 60.
We're talking about 70,000 square feet, I think we have, 70,000.
So,
So this would be
Yeah, I mean-
17,000 square feet.
I don't think we should do it on spec, because that wasn't not, I mean, we weren't trying to do that. So I think we could structure it in a way that whoever pays first, then the next one, based on square feet or whatever, would start paying, and there would be a credit to the ground lease if they've already fully paid that first
Works. That's
section.
That's a good idea.
So everyone pays and no one overpays.
All we're trying to do is collect, get
And make it fair.
Get the infrastructure paid for.
Well, for the Don and Bill and Chris, any thoughts?
What if, speaking of your credit to the ground lease, what if we just paid for it and we credited our ground lease?
Well, that's, I mean, that would be great. I mean,
We hadn't talked about this, I'm just.
that, you saw our numbers, I mean, that would help a lot. Yes or no?
Back to who owns the infrastructure.
It looks like
Yeah.
Dr. D is gonna build to the south of us, sure you can do that, have him put his 46 up to, won't be that many much different, and then get paid off much faster, and,
That's the best of all worlds. You bring in another 10 hangars and pay it off quicker.
Because Chris Dias has mentioned he wants to come in right behind them.
He said he's at least a year out.
Okay.
That's what I was saying, is if we pay for it, you give us the credit on the ground lease on what it costs until that's gone. The infrastructure's there, if guys put stuff there, whoever puts stuff there later,
I would want
the
that.
infrastructure's in.
We could certainly figure that out.
As long as we retain ownership to it, yeah.
Right, you guys retain ownership, it's essentially a loan from us to the authority to put the infrastructure in, but we get we recoup that infrastructure cost back on our ground.
Yeah.
That solves a big problem.
That's potentially workable.
who's contracting for it in that case, though?
Good question. Who's contracting for it? Will asked. Who'd be the GC? Who'd make the order for the work?
Well, you'd have to hire a contractor, we have to see, well, it's our contractor.
No, for the infrastructure, for the electrical, the sewer, and the road.
I might be jumping ahead, but I have a proposal that might address that.
Go ahead.
So I'm Walt Bolton, some of you know me 20 years and some of you don't know me at all. But I own BES, and 3 years ago I had a little girl. I do all my work here locally now, but I've done work all over the country, from Fort Drum, runways, all the way to Peru and Puerto Rico to Beaufort Marine Corps Air Station. So one of the proposals I was going to give tonight, just a conceptual idea, was to be, you've got a great team over here for your horizontal engineering, but you don't have a resident construction manager, GC. So I'm an unlimited general contractor. I'd be willing to work with you and work it out with them on a fee. And I would just handle all of your stuff for a fixed fee, and be your GC. So in regards to what they're talking about, I could be your general contractor. I could sub all the stuff out as a construction manager for the board, and then we would get pricing and proposals from multiple sources so you get the best price.
Does that step on your Kane Roberts' toes, Don?
Is that stuff on Volker's toes?
And the other proposal I was going to offer to you is, I'm a vertical engineer, right? So we do mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and structural, some of the stuff that they do, but we're much more vertical. We just finished the hangar for Mr. Goldberg, and you can go after the hurricane and see the quality of our work. But I can also offer those services at a discounted rate, or however you want to do it. But you can have your own unlimited GC and your own PE, vertical PE, basically on staff. And when you don't use me, you don't pay for it.
Well, we appreciate that, but I want to get the approval of the square footage But we'll entertain that as a proposal, okay? At some point, not tonight, though, okay? I'm
Well,
gonna
I
get-
wanted to give you 3 more
Okay.
concepts tonight, and I'll wait.
All right.
But one of those is we're working with all the federal installations to go net zero. The federal government has mandated 2030, all military bases have to be net zero. There's a ton of money out there for going to self-sustaining power. So that's something else that you might want to consider since you're cash strapped. The DOE has a bunch of money, there's a lot of money out there that are grants for self-sustaining facilities.
Okay. So can I have a motion on the 40 cents a square foot? Just for the utilities that were defined, and that we would prorate it when we get another tenant group there, and it would be an amendment to the lease.
Make a motion that we would approve a 40 cent per square foot surcharge for water, fire, and electricity. As additional customers come on board, we would prorate.
And also part of this lease, if they want to pay for it, I mean, we'll work towards that. Okay?
They won't pay for
They
it,
will-
we'll work towards
Yes.
negotiating a swap out of these.
Discussion of the ground lease.
Yeah.
Do we need a second?
Go ahead, second that, that works.
And this will be a non-reimbursable. Yeah, there you go.
Non-reimbursable.
And it doesn't preclude them paying it.
Doesn't preclude them paying it, and when we get it paid off, they'll remind us and we'll quit collecting the rent. Okay, all those in favor of that lease, and I'll help you, or that motion, I'll help you get it right. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, and we'll move forward on that. The next item is approval of the rescission of the 53,000, no, I'm sorry. Next item is the approval of the revised ground lease for Fairhope Hangar Partners LLC. What this essence is they modified their original ground lease from 6 hangar slots to 4, reduced their lease footprint, or their ground lease footprint to 7,484 square feet. So I think that lease is in that proposed survey is in your packet.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor of the new revised ground lease, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Final thing is approval of the rescission, and I think I said that right, of the $53,500 subsidy for the utility construction for the Fairhope Hangar Partners LLC. Obviously, these things are all tied together. We've kind of knocked this around a lot. Is there any discussion about this?
Well, this is moot now, isn't it?
Sorry, what?
This
Go
is
ahead,
moot,
Amy.
Isn't it? No.
Isn't it? Didn't the approval of the 40 cents per square foot infrastructure negate the need to consider this item?
That's the way I see it.
That was
If that's your opinion, sure.
well, let me,
That's my opinion.
let me right. Just so I understand, I mean, my understanding now is that the authority will spend the money for the infrastructure improvements, but that the current tenant plus any subsequent tenants will ultimately reimburse the authority for that expenditure. So I mean, it may or may not be $53,500, but my understanding of what just happened is the authority did agree that it would make the expenditure for the infrastructure.
I won't make it easy then. I make a motion, we rescind the $53,500 due to the fact that we approved the 40 cents per square foot land lease infrastructure fee.
That's it.
All those in favor of Vince's motion, signify by saying aye.
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 You didn't hear what he said.
Aye.
He said, there we go.
All right, guys, all right, treasurer's report. Amy, you want to talk a little bit
Okay.
about I guess in your packages, the August and the September financials?
Yeah, there's no reason to look at both, really. The September one then is closing out the year. we came in above plan on revenue, and that's completely due to the CARES Act. Otherwise, we would have just been right on budget. But we also, as Joe mentioned, managed expenses pretty well and came in 7.8% under budget on expenses.
Is that CARE Act money, the 62,752? You got listed.
69,000.
It's 70, it's the miscellaneous income.
The 72, the 69,000 plus the reimbursement for that fence damage is in there.
So it's 69,000.
Yeah.
We used it our miscellaneous income.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Yep. So that's it. And then one thing I wanted to mention, I forgot to say for the budget, which I thought of working on the numbers, is if we do end up refinancing the debt, we may not have to make that principal payment next year. And that would solve a lot of problems. Exactly.
And we could, we could potentially save $70,000, $80,000, although we may lose some in attorney fees, because it's going to cost
Yeah.
attorney fees.
Yeah, but it may net out no savings for next year, but not making that principal payment may be a
So we
blessing.
might have just taken 53,000 expenditures out. We might add 75, or if we negotiate with them when they pay for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Done all savings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's in there right now is, us paying the 53, and them paying 8,000, which it would be less than 8,000, it would be like 6,300 at the 40 cents.
Okay.
Is
All
there
right.
anything else?
Anything else, Amy?
I don't think so.
Okay, other business, we're going to talk a little bit about the website.
Yeah, it's coming along a little slower than I would like, but we've had a couple of hurricanes and so forth. You have a report here from the lady that we contracted with. I'll stay close to her in communications and see if we can get something moving pretty quickly.
So those are, she gave us a summary. Okay, other business, Vince, you want to talk about nominations, the officer nominations?
Sure. Chip and Will and I met and discussed these in detail. We had some ideas. We were going to get back together. Then we had Hurricane Sally. We haven't gotten back together. I've discussed it with Josh. Due to some problems we've had this year, with all of us have had with COVID, hurricane displaced people in the power for a week or two, et cetera, et cetera. We're recommending today that we keep everyone exactly as they are until our January meeting, and we'll bring a proposal at the January meeting for the slate officers for the rest of this. And after talking with Josh, I'm putting that in form of a motion, and we do need approval.
Well, I'll make a motion that we keep the officer positions as they are today until January.
And why are we moving away from our year-to-year?
Because we hadn't had a chance to get back
Okay.
together.
Okay.
And we're fixing to go into, we had a pretty long meeting today.
We're beat up.
We're fixing to change mayors. We're fixing to do a lot of things. And we're going into Thanksgiving and we're going into Christmas.
All right, so do we have a motion to approve the?
To maintain,
Do we have a
to
second?
maintain the positions as they are today.
Yeah. Do we have a second?
Not legal.
Okay, all those in favor of keeping the Vince's recommendation, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, now for real other business. Walt?
So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, I'm gonna bring a proposal to you. I would like to be your first anchor tenant, just like, kind of like we're doing with the design of the McNeil hangar. I'd like to be your first anchor tenant on your commercial property that you have out
On the
there.
west side.
On the west
On
side.
the west side.
On the west side. Joe and I went and looked at it just the other day. And then, besides bringing a proposal just to acquire the land for the commercial for me to be the anchor tenant, I would like to talk about maybe a public-private venture where I can be your developer for that whole commercial strip. The road is pretty simple. We've got to hug the wetland setback. and the drainage setback. So the road that goes back and connects to McGowan is pretty straightforward. But I have 4 potential clients that want, warehouse space, office space, in that 5 to 10,000 square foot per building range. So I think I can bring a lot of
How
value.
many acres would a 10,000 square foot building use?
Probably, the commercial clients that I'm talking about are people like, one of the clients that has approached me is the gentleman that owns Spark. He has a business where he has trucks and he puts digital signs on the back of the trucks. So he only needs a couple of acres.
Sure.
So, we could come up with some conceptual plans on my nickel. We could put that together. I would bring you a team, a real estate agent, a team that would help with the marketing, website, all that stuff. But I'd really like to be the anchor tenant, and then we can move our business out there, and then help develop and bring you some money, right? Get you some money, because I think if we focus on clean power, we focus on maybe trying to go get some grants with some solar, since you've got a lot of space where there's grass now. I think we can bring a lot of value and bring people here, talk to the new mayor about having incentives to bring, clean manufacturing or clean properties to the commercial area. I think you've got 170 acres. I think that's what Joe told me. On the west side. And I think you've had it, you've kind of owned or maintained the property for a dozen years or more now, Joe?
Might be 11 years.
10 years. So I really think now's the time. I mean, with COVID, our business has changed. People aren't so critical about exactly where they need to be. They can live where they want to be. And you can sell this whole fly-in, have your business, you can fly in, leave your airplane, you can have your business and your office right there in the commercial park, and maybe even amend the golf cart thing so people can run back and forth or add a lane eventually. But I think we could do a lot of work together and really promote that aspect of the airport.
Well, we won't call it the airport, we're going to call it the west side.
Okay,
The
west side. But this is preliminary. I just wanted to kind of introduce myself. Some of you, like Josh, have known me almost 20 years, Will. But, I'm doing local stuff now. I'm not flying all over the country. I want to go home and see my little girls every night. So this would be something that would be good for us. We like that location because we're kind of all over Baldwin County. And I think it'd be good for the city.
Your first thing would be you would relocate BES there.
Right, so my heavy equipment, my dump trucks, my engineering, my architecture, all that stuff would go in one place out at the airport. Right now I have 2 locations inside Fairhope.
Any thoughts about how we build that road?
I haven't even gotten that far. I think you told me that maybe the county had some funds set aside for infrastructure, but that's, I think, you may or may not know, I designed the first FEMA shelter under the 361 guidelines, which is the Robertsdale Coliseum. I designed that project, and Baldwin County Fair didn't have the money, and we went and got $7.5 million from FEMA. So there's a lot of options out there. Some of these facilities at the airport, you can get 75% if you'll make it a hurricane-resistant facility. So, you might be able to think about expansion and building, a large building that's hurricane-resistant, and FEMA will pay you 75% of the infrastructure cost if you meet those 361 guidelines. The Coliseum's the only one in the county right now that does, and it can only hold about 1,900 people during a storm event. But there's a lot of options out there, and I think we could bring some value to help.
Well, we would welcome, not welcome a partnership, but we certainly would entertain a partnership. We've had some hard times getting people truly engaged and doing something with it.
Right now, we're located on Middle Street, and we're kind of out of room, and I've got that place for sale. And then we're downtown on Fells Avenue for our headquarters office. So it would be a logical step for us. So I'm going to get with Joe, there's a couple of spaces on 32, and we're going to get those defined, and I'll get appraisals, a real estate appraisal type proposal put together for you to consider, and so we can get started.
Like a contract to buy the land.
Right, a proposal,
Yeah, yeah.
but I'll give you some comps of
Okay.
what's been selling there locally and the values.
On that subject, Josh, don't we have to sell it for what we bought it for at the very least?
I haven't been able to put my hands on that.
Okay.
I've looked for it, and Joe, I mean, maybe you remember just offhand, that, for some reason, that's ringing a bell, but I haven't been able to put my hand on anything that specifically restricts us to selling it for the minimum price that was paid for it, which was back in '07? Or the price per acre. I mean, the price per acre in '07 was about 28,000.
Yeah, but I mean, when we had that, when we had the appraisal done and when Continental looked at it, it was right at, it was within a couple $100. I don't think that's gonna be a problem. And I think it's gonna be close to what,
I think it was 28, 30, if I remember.
yeah, 27.5, 28, something like that.
Well, see if you can find it, Josh, yeah.
But
I
I'm
will.
going to bring real comps, stuff that's been selling
Yeah.
close by, in the size range, you know, that, of course, as you know, if you buy 1,000 acres or 170 acres, it's different than if you buy
About
2
5
acres,
yeah.
right? So, but those are the things that we're working on. And I do think that there is a lot of money to help facilitate what your mission is out there with green and sustainable programs, especially with the DOE. And then, of course, if you have clean power and green power, then you can get companies that need that or want that as part of their manufacturing process. So I'll be thrilled to work with you on those issues too. Just a proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you still the contractor for the, for contractor? You're the contractor for?
Yes, we're going to be working with the McNeils to build that hangar that you approved tonight. It's already designed, it's in permitting with the city now.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any other business? Don, you've sat through the whole thing.
Yeah, for you to sign up for our new diesel.
Oh,
Okay.
the revised ground lease.
We didn't bring it.
No, I mean, I had to wait for the board to approve it. I'll prepare it and email it to you to review.
Well, the board approved it already tonight.
Yep, but he doesn't.
But I haven't drafted it.
That's all we were just making
No, I will email it to you tomorrow or the next day, and then y'all can come by the office like we did with the other one and sign off on it.
Just sign here, Don, right, just, it'll work. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, Larry Anderson's here to talk about our traffic pattern, and then I'm gonna make a motion after that.
Oh, yeah.
This won't take a minute. I just wanted to tell you guys about a hazardous situation at the airport that's just started in the last month. I think everybody here knows that airports have traffic patterns, and they're called left-hand or right-hand, but basically it means that when airplanes are flying around in the vicinity of the airport to land, they always either go clockwise or counterclockwise, and it's a federal regulation that you do it a certain way. It's not optional at an airport without a tower. So at Fairhope, it's left-hand traffic, which basically means that you fly counterclockwise. Well, Sky Warrior over in Pensacola has just got a big Navy contract, so they're sending airplanes over here. We know 4 of them come over here multiple times a day. We know it's them because they use unique call signs rather than their tail number. And the problem is that they fly sometimes left-hand, sometimes right-hand. Yesterday, I was out there, and there were 2 going this way and 2 going this way. It's about the most dangerous thing you can do at an airport. It's just awful. I know it's not the responsibility. I'm not asking you guys to do anything. It's a federal, I mean, it's the FAA's problem, but I think you ought to know it. It's pretty dangerous. And I've spoken to some of them, and they just ignored me, so.
Yeah, we need to address
I'm
that.
just telling, you know.
I'm aware of an instance in Mississippi where a pilot made a right-hand traffic pattern that they filed a violation.
Oh, yeah,
So.
The real problem is these students, if you solo a student and they're expecting things to be a certain way and some plane comes the opposite way,
Yeah.
their brain is not even gonna hear it because it never happened before. They'll do the same thing they always do and they'll run right into them. It's real dangerous.
Larry, what kind of planes are Sky Warrior flying? The typical trainers?
172s.
Yeah.
It's like if you went into a traffic circle and you wanted to go this way, and instead of going this way, you went this way because it was shorter and you run into another car, so.
Could we call the CEO of the old Skywalker?
I was gonna make a motion that we send them a letter.
Okay, that's even better.
And, you know, reaffirm that we have a left-hand turn in Fairhope. They're not adhering to it, it's an FAA regulation, and request they instruct all appellants to adhere to left-hand traffic pattern.
Right. I second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor of sending a letter to Sky Walker?
I'll get it, if you want me to help you write the letter, I'll get it.
Certainly would like to make sure.
So,
Should the letter come from our attorney or should it come from the chairman?
I'll be happy to draft it. I think it should come from the chairman.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of drafting the letter, signify by saying aye.
All right.
All right, anything else? Don? Okay, Chair recognizes that it's 6:30 and we're going to adjourn. Thank y'all.